Hello friends, I am Dr. Himanshu Pandey, Assistant Professor, School of Law, Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. Present module, Research Problem, containing basic knowledge of selection of research problem and the procedure of formulation of research problem, its kinds and analysis have been discussed thereunder. All contents will be dealt with explanation and illustrations by this lecture. Objective of this lecture is tries to develop understanding and basic skills of identifying research problems, planning and executing legal research projects, and of appreciating the problems associated therewith, so that you can plan and pursue legal and socio-legal research in your future. All research problems are driven by social problem. Problem solving aptitude is a natural quality given by nature to all for their survival. But human being is the only creature blessed with the thinking process, with vision, imagination, creativity and innovation. These attributes of man makes him enabled to change the things surrounding him according to his wish. If man feels anything problematic, only then he thinks to change. Various research methods are used to resolve any problematic states. Selection of research methodology depends on nature of research problem. Selection of research problem is the first step in every research. No research can undergo by the researcher unless he first formulate the research problem properly and scientifically. Concept of problem is basically a psychological aspect which can be caused by either physical or mental facts. Research can be performed only after psychological involvement of researcher with the problem. Studying any research is not independent subject and cannot be studied ignoring the personality traits and skills of the researcher. That means for the formulation of research problem, involvement of researcher plays a very important part. Research can be performed only after realization and sensitization of researcher towards the real research problem, and thereafter only he can formulate any real practical problem. Characteristics of research problem. There are some general assumptions as to any problem. First, no problem comes from vacuum, and every problem has their solution. First postulate shows that every problem what you realize has its certain components, its history, origin and other variables involved in composing such problem. Problem does not come from vacuum, like immediately it exists or disappeared. Whatever you feel problematic, it has some evidences which have to be collected by keen investigation. Every problem has their solution. Whatever phenomena or situation you perceive as problematic, I assure you that every problem has the solution. This is your quality, how to find out the solution. In ordinary sense, we can say that dissatisfaction is the first point which originates any problem. The term problem may be explained as dissatisfaction of any person as to any subject of his life. Every problem arises from dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is a mental element and it is always related to present fact. Even if a man is worried about his future, the subject matter of his anxiety may be past, of present, or of future, but the state of anxiety is present. For any research, the researcher should have that state of mind present, that the research problem exists somewhere in his life. If he seriously considers all the variables, facts, phenomena about such problem, he can further proceed to formulate research problem. If a man perceives anything, phenomena, dissatisfied to his person, in that case, immediately he try to convert his state of dissatisfaction to satisfaction. If man knows how to be satisfied, immediately he can act towards the satisfaction. But if he does not possess any experience or knowledge with such problem, how to solve that problem, in that case he has to undergo with research process. Before selecting any research problem, certain points should be clearly analyzed and determined by the researcher. First, that the problem should not be fictitious. No problem which is fictitious only, not exist anywhere in this world, cannot be the good subject for research, because the use of sources, time and money will be wastage, will be of no utility for the society. Second, any problem, any phenomena which is selected for research, that problematic situation, phenomena or the factor should be of permanent nature. Studying on any factor which cause you dissatisfaction temporarily for the short while, which is not repeated again, and there is no scope of its repetition in your future, in that case studying on such problem is useless. Any problem selected for research should be of high significance value. Here the significance value means the nature of problem should be of common for all. Whatever the suggestion and the solution will come, that may be utilized and should be benefited to the high number of beneficiaries. If the size of beneficiary group is higher, that means its significance value is higher, and if its size of beneficiaries are lesser, its significance value is also lesser. There are certain common steps of formulation of research problem. First, any problematic phenomena realized by the researcher itself is not sufficient to be selected immediately for research problem. There are certain scientific steps which have to be strictly followed for the formulation of research problem. First, realization of problem, then identification of problem, analysis of problem, and last is the statement of problem. The problem is finally formulated with its statement of problem. Realization of problem. Researchers should realize or sensitize with the existence of problem. Any problem assigned for research which has not been realized by the researcher as to its nature, existence and its evil effects. Though the researcher can undergo with the research, but he cannot check its effects because he cannot realize its effects suggested by him. In other terms, it is said that the victim can be the good researcher for any research. The person who is really suffered with any problem, who is victim of problem, he can be the good researcher. It does not mean any person, whoever, whether it is victim, stakeholder or other, who understand the pain or difficulties of life caused by such problem may undergo research. The scholar who is in one geographical area can also research on the social problem of another geographical area. Like terrorism. Terrorism is a problem in certain disturbed areas of a country, but any person who realizes its effects, pain caused to the society, if he realizes such effect, he can undergo with the research to find out its solution. Realization is a process. Realization is a cognitive process when man perceives any stimulus, fact or phenomena which he receives by his receptors of mind, and thereafter cognitive process starts in his mind to identify such a stimulus on the basis of his experience, knowledge and insight. Whatever is the nature of experience, knowledge or insight he possesses, outcome of his mind will be respectively a state of satisfaction or not. After receiving any stimulus in mind, analyzing it, immediately it may give the positive response sign or negative sign. Positive sign denotes the satisfaction, negative sign denotes its dissatisfaction of mind. In turn, dissatisfaction proceeds for alteration, amendment, improvement and replacement. Such realization of a stimulus, the researcher to feel about their negative attributes or something lacking. After realization or sensitization of problem, second step to be performed by the researcher, that is the identification of problem. The researcher must identify the problem. Whatever he realizes, he should get it be tested that whether what he feel problematic exists or not. After sometimes any problem which is realized by the researcher, and if he go to corroborate such problem, he comes to know that his realization of problem was not correct. That was sometime misconception or misunderstanding of phenomena, or it may be illusion or delusion. Understanding any fact is the identification process. For the identification of research problem, facts involved in the research problem, he must go with the corroboration of opinion. Whatever opinion he formed as to the existence or nature of problem, he must get it be corroborated by some other persons. Researcher should discuss his observation regarding problem with the stakeholders, experts, and to invite their opinion on such problem. At the same time, researcher can go through with the available literature to get acquainted himself with the selected problem. Study of literature for the corroboration of opinion as to any research problem is the review of literature. Review of literature is basically a step of corroboration of opinion. It is mandatory and formal step followed in every research process. Researcher has to consult as possible as with all relevant literature containing information regarding subject matter of research. He may review literature of two types. First, the conceptual literature, literature concerning the concepts and theories relating to the matter in hand. Second, the empirical literature consisting of all such studies made earlier which are similar to the proposed one. After analyzing such facts, information and principles, he can sharpen his vision towards the problem so that his perception towards the problem would be more accurate. After identification of problem, the third step, that is the analysis of problem. Under this step, researcher has to analyze all such facts which constitute the problem, nature of problem and their effects. There can be a detailed description of the circumstances under which it occurs, nature, symptom, progressions and frequency, etc. and their analysis become necessary. This will help to understand the context, nature and effect of such problem. Steps of analysis of problem. Analysis of problem contain three major steps as description of problem, understanding of problem and explanation thereof. In analysis process, researcher has to analyze the problem on following aspects: whether problem is of temporary nature or permanent nature, what are the constituents of problem, determination of relevant variables, what factors are responsible for causing such problem, whether such factors responsible for causing problem are of internal nature or external one. Nature of problem as to its temporal nature or permanent nature must be verified by the researcher before selection of research problem. Many times in our life, we come across to some circumstances and situations which are dissatisfactory for us, and after passing them, we neither go to look into or to investigate such problems, nor interested to research, because we are well assured that such happening was by chance or incidental only, which would not occur again in our life, or losses caused by such incidents are not very high. Such problems are of temporal nature. Any problem which is of temporal nature does not affect our life very seriously and not exist persistently in our life. Such problems are not researchable, since the researcher knows that the results may be beneficial only for his personal knowledge, but such knowledge has no further utility unless there is any possibility of their repetition in our life further. While selecting any research problem, researcher must see that problem should not be of temporary nature. It should be of permanent nature, which requires human interception. Constituents of problem. Determination of constituents of problem is the part of analytic process. No problem comes from vacuum. This postulates, gives the direction that any problem in hand must be studied in such a way so that we can ascertain its constituent factors, variables and other facts involved in the process which makes that phenomena problematic. Researcher has to search and analyze all those facts which are the part of any problematic incidents, phenomena or transaction. This process is called crystallization of problem. Crystallization of problem is a process commonly used at the stage of analysis of research problem, especially in diagnostic research. Crystallization process is very important. Sometimes the causes of problem are directly highlighted through analysis at the early stage of research. Another philosophy behind crystallization of constituent is to direct the approach which suggests that the fact constituting the phenomena must be keenly observed. After keen analysis of the facts and factors involved in any problem, the person can be assured that in what direction, with what facts he has to study for solution. Crystallization also shows the nature and relationship of variables which is necessary to be determined in every research. Determination of variables after crystallization of problem. Researcher has to determine the relevant variables or relevant facts among all constituting variables or facts. He has to analyze that what facts among other facts are somewhere concerned for their problem or may be responsible for their problem, and he has to filter those facts and to focus his studies further only on those variables which he has selected for the investigation, to ascertain that what may be the important facts responsible for occurrence of any problem. Among all other variables selected, filtered for the study, he has to focus on some major facts which can be held responsible with their major contribution for occurrence, subsistence and continuance of such problem. There is a principle that any problematic phenomena, transaction or incidents perceived problematic may occur due to the composition of facts in a certain manner, but such problem cannot subsist long unless nurtured by other factors. Any such problem which exists in your life is no doubt the composition of facts which causes any incidents or phenomena problematic, but it cannot maintain further unless it has any other supporting factors to maintain its existence. Such supporting factors are those factors which can be held responsible for the nurturing of problem. These factors may be the internal or external one. Internal factors are those factors which are hidden in problem itself, and they can be searched by crystallization of problematic phenomena, whereas external factors are those factors which do not constitute the part of constituents of research problem. Problem depending on other factors which are not the part of constituents of the problem, which is the external member, and from outside it manipulates the facts which results in problem. These factors are called independent variables and problem is called dependent variables. Independent variables means those variables which, though responsible for occurrence of problem and their manipulation affect the problem, but here effect in any problem shall not affect those variables in turn. That is why these variables are called independent, and our problem depends on the existence and variation of such facts. That is why this problem is called dependent variable. After the analysis of problem, the final stage of formulation of problem, that is the statement of problem. When the problem actually comes into shape of a statement, whatever be the understanding and perception made by the researcher after crystallization and keen analysis of problem, thereafter he makes the statement regarding existence of problem. This statement may be in verbal form or in written form. A statement must convey the real nature of problem as it is, as realized and felt by the researcher. While formulating research problem, researcher has to be very careful as to the use of language and grammar. Language should be clear, easy and unambiguous. This is that stage when the problem is conveyed by the researcher and submitted for the further research process. If the researcher is weak in understanding language, grammar and communicating the problem, in that case it may be the negativity on the part of researcher. After making the statement as to the existence of any research and analyzing the variables responsible for the problem can be classified on the basis of its variables, independent and dependent variables. Such relation is studied by the research designing according to the nature of research formulated by the researcher. Kind of research problem can be classified as univariable problem, bivariable problem, multivariables problem or opponent variables problem. Univariable problem is the problem where formulated after following certain hypotheses, and hypothesis denoting that any single independent variable is responsible for the problem. And whole study is focused to study about that individual factor stated in the hypothesis as single variable or univariable. After completion of research, the hypothesis is tested. If that variable is really responsible for the problem, means your hypothesis has been proved. And if the variable stated held responsible for the problem is not found true, means hypothesis disproved, and researcher should move for further investigation. Second, bivariable problem, where hypothesis suggests inferences on two different independent variables responsible for occurrence of the problem, is called bivariable problem. Researcher has to focus attention at the same time on two independent variables. He has to investigate and thereafter he has to determine this thing whether both the variables are responsible for the problem or any one of them. If both the variables are found responsible, then he has to look the major contribution of any variable. The variable who is found who has contributed as major variable, who is found as major variable for the problem, is called the major variable, and other variable who is studied together with the major variable is called the minor variable. And if after investigation it is decided that the one of the variable is responsible and other is not, in that case one hypothesis is disproved and other is proved. After this bivariable problem, another nature of problem is multivariable problem, where number of variables are held responsible for existence of any problem in the hypothesis. Hypothesis suggesting that number of variables, more than two variables, are responsible for existence of problem. This research process is very difficult because at the same time researcher has to focus on all suspected variables and he has to be independent, unbiased and objective towards his keen investigation in the light of relation of problem with the variables. Gradually with the study he moved from multivariables to individual variables and come to conclusion whether all variables stated in hypothesis are causing problem or some of them or none of them. On the basis of classification of variables, the last classification is opponent variable problem, where there is a quotient between two or more inconsistent variables, whether A is the cause of problem or B is the cause of problem. Where A and B cannot stand together, in such cases, two hypotheses are formulated. First alleges the role of A variable and second on B. On proving one hypothesis, other is rejected. Living example of this opponent variable problem is the determination of paternity, where two or more persons are suspected for ascertaining the paternity of any child. Natural science provides that all the suspects cannot be held responsible for this nature of problem. In that case, only those variables which are suspected are studied under this process, and thereafter the researcher comes with the final conclusion as to the role of any one of the variable, and other is exonerated from his investigation. After analyzing as to the nature of research problem, formulation of research problem, all other important aspects relating to realization of problem, formulation of problem, and classification of problem, here on final conclusion, it can be summarized as the formulation of research problem is a mental and psychological process which can be completed with the proper involvement of the researcher with the problem. First is the realization. After realization of the problem, researcher comes with the identification of problem. For the identification, he has to verify the facts with the corroborative opinion of other persons, review of literature. All existing literature as maximum as possible should be researched properly for determination of research problem. And review of literature is further beneficial to the researcher for his further study with that research problem. Statement of problem, that is the final shape of research problem, should be properly, systematically, grammatically correct, and the statement of problem should convey the same feeling and experience as researcher conceives in his mind as to the nature and existence of problem. Thank you.